Hi everyone. Before we get into this audiobook, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button and drop a like. It helps me out a lot, as well as contributes a lot to the channel. Now, let's get into the story. I hope you enjoy. Lavender's ghost mingled with sun-dusted air currents slicing through her window as Talia's 18th birthday dawned. Another sunrise, another clean slate. A silent exhalation, barely stirring the quiet, preceded her resolve for the day's pantomime, enacted for their benefit mother and father. The cool caress of aged wood greeted her bare feet as she rose, a familiar grounding sensation. Each movement, economical and precise, reflected years of this ritual. The old house groaned around her, a chorus of bygone stories audible only to her. Downstairs, the acrid tang of incinerated bread permeated the air, a constant reminder of her father's culinary ineptitude. Her mother, off-key and oblivious, meticulously arranged drooping lilies in a vase upon the kitchen table. They turned as she appeared, faces imprinted with that well-rehearsed, polite confusion. "Good morning," Talia offered, her tone measured. "I'm Talia. I live here." Her mother's brow creased, a fleeting wrinkle of puzzlement. "Well, hello, dear. You startled me. I don't believe we've been properly introduced in." She extended a hand, her smile hesitant. "I'm Eleanor, and this is my husband, Arthur." Arthur, ever buoyant, boomed. "A pleasure to meet you, young lady. You look like you could use some sustenance." Though, Eleanor's been wrestling with that recalcitrant toaster this morning. He chuckled, unaware of the cyclical drama unfolding. Talia manufactured a smile, the muscles straining under the forced cheer. "It's nice to meet you both. Again." The final word remained unsaid, a phantom echo. Eleanor's touch, as she accepted the offered hand, was brief, impersonal. Breakfast proceeded with deliberate caution. Talia fielded their inquiries with practiced patience, questions ingrained in her memory. School? Hobbies? Siblings? Each reply was a tiny sliver of ice, lodging itself within her. "So, Talia," Arthur began, his voice artificially bright. "Grand plans for this fine day." Talia swallowed past the obstruction in her throat. "It's my birthday," she murmured, scanning their faces for any flicker of recognition, finding only courteous attentiveness. Eleanor gasped, her hand fluttering to her collarbone. "Oh, my dear, happy birthday. How many candles this year?" 18, Talia answered. The word weighted with forgotten celebrations. A solitary tear escaped, tracing a path down her cheek. She banished it quickly, unwilling to shatter their precarious fiction. Arthur cleared his throat, his gaze skittering nervously. "Well, 18. A significant milestone. We should commemorate this occasion. What would bring you joy today?" Talia shook her head, the hollowness within resonating in her voice. "It wouldn't matter. You won't retain it." The words hung heavy, pregnant with unshed grief. Eleanor reached out, her hand covering Talia's. "Don't speak like that, dear. We'll strive to recall. We truly want to become acquainted." Talia studied her mother's face, seeking a genuine spark, a vestige of memory. But there was only benevolence, a well-intentioned facade destined to crumble with the sunrise. "You always pledge that," Talia whispered, retracting her hand. "But it's never sustained." She pushed away from the table, the chair's screech a jarring intrusion on the quiet. "I'm leaving," she stated, her voice devoid of inflection. "I'll return later." She didn't await a response, fleeing the kitchen's stifling atmosphere. Stepping into the clear morning air, She inhaled deeply, seeking to fill the void within. The world stretched before her, immense and uncaring. Every face a stranger, every day a reiteration. The town throbbed with life, people scurrying about, faces animated with purpose. Talia navigated their midst, an invisible specter. She passed the bakery, the aroma of warm bread briefly distracting her from the ache in her chest. She recalled the countless birthday confections her mother had created, each one lovingly adorned, each one erased by morning. She wandered aimlessly, gravitating towards the woods bordering the town. The trees offered a sense of comfort, their ancient stillness a welcome contrast to the ephemeral nature of human recall. She discovered a hidden haven beneath a towering oak, its limbs reaching skyward like arthritic fingers. Seated there, encompassed by rustling foliage and birdsong, Talia permitted herself to feel the full magnitude of her isolation. 18 years. 18 years of introductions, explanations, fleeting connections that dissolved before dawn. She yearned for a companion. Soulmate. Someone capable of remembering. Someone to share her burden. But she knew it was a futile desire. The curse guaranteed that. A curse uttered before her birth, a vow of perpetual solitude. She had learned to endure, to adapt, to erect barricades around her emotions. She had become adept at self-sufficiency, a lone voyager navigating a world that consistently obliterated her existence. But today, on her 18th birthday, the loneliness felt exceptionally raw, a wound that refused to close. The sun ascended, casting elongated shadows across the forest floor. Talia closed her eyes, absorbing the warmth. She conjured a different reality, one brimming with laughter, affection, enduring bonds, a reality where introductions weren't a daily necessity, where her memories weren't solely hers. But it was nearly a reverie, a fleeting escape from the unyielding reality of her life. Reopening her eyes, she found the world unchanged, apathetic and relentless. She stood, brushing soil from her clothing. It was time to confront the day, to perform her part in the endless cycle of oblivion. As she walked back toward town, she perceived a figure standing at the fringe of the woods, observing her. A man, statuesque and broad-shouldered, possessing eyes that seemed to penetrate the shadows. He sparked a strange feeling, a sensation of recognition that sent chills down her spine. He looked directly at her, a knowing expression etched on his face. He shouldn't recognize her. No one ever did. Not for long, at least. He began walking towards her, and for the first time, Talia didn't recoil. Something in his gaze, something in his posture, held her spellbound. Hope, fragile and embryonic, flickered within her. Could this be it? Could he be the one who remembers? Or was it merely another cruel jest of fate, another illusion destined to dissipate with the sunrise? Only time would reveal the answer. But for now, she remained firm, awaiting her destiny. Whispers in the woods, Kieran's wolf form, a creature of midnight and muscle, moved like a shadow through the Northwood forest. He patrolled the territory borders, a primal instinct honed over years of leadership urging him forward. But tonight, the familiar scent of pine and damp earth was purred with something else, a discordant note in the symphony of the woods. It was a whisper of old magic, a hum against his fur that raised the hairs on his neck. The air thrummed with an energy he hadn't felt in centuries, not since the tales of the old ones were spoken around crackling fires, tales he'd dismissed as folklore until this very moment. He stopped at the crest of a ridge, his powerful chest heaving, nostrils flared. The scent was Strongest here. A strange blend of wildflower and something stale, like forgotten dust. It tugged at him, an invisible thread pulling him deeper into the woods, toward the periphery of his packlands. His wolf snarled, a low rumble in his cray. Throat hesitant. The packlands were sacred, protected. This felt like an intrusion. Shifting back to his human form, Kieran pulled on the discarded clothes he kept stashed near the boundary markers. The chill air raised goosebumps on his skin, a stark contrast to the heat that still simmered beneath his surface from the transformation. He needed to consult with Gareth. Gareth, his beta, was in the training clearing, overseeing a sparring session between two young wolves eager to prove their strength. The clang of metal on metal, the grunts of exertion, faded as Kieran approached, his very presence radiating authority. The sparring Mai stooked, heads turning in deference. "Gareth," Kieran said, his voice low and gravelly, "I need to speak with you." Gareth, a man built like an oak with eyes as sharp as flint, dismissed the others with a nod. "What is it, Alpha?" "You look troubled." "The forest, it feels different tonight. There's something wrong." Kieran struggled to articulate the feeling, the foreign magic resisting definition. "It's like an echo, a whisper of something ancient. I can't explain it." Gareth frowned, his brow furrowed in thought. "I haven't sensed anything unusual, Alpha. The patrols have reported nothing out of the ordinary. That's what concerns me. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but it's there. I felt it strongest near the western border, close to Talia's cottage." Kieran hesitated, the name feeling like a stone in his mouth. The solitary woman, forever a stranger, a constant reminder of the pack's unspoken rule, isolation. Gareth's eyes narrowed. "Talia? Do you think she's involved?" Kieran shook his head. "I don't know. But the energy, it feels connected somehow. It's drawing me in that direction. I need to investigate." He didn't want it to be Talia. He didn't want to have to consider that the woman he had only met once was stirring something so deeply buried. "Alone?" Gareth asked, his voice laced with concern. "Alpha, if this is ancient magic, you shouldn't face it without backup." "I need to see this for myself first, Gareth. I need to understand what I'm dealing with before I bring the pack into it." He knew he was being stubborn, but the instinct was overpowering. He couldn't explain it. He just knew, deep in his bones, that this was something he had to face alone, at least initially. "Keep the pack on alert. Double the patrols. If I don't report back by dawn, send a search party." Gareth nodded, his expression grim. He knew better than to argue when Kieran's mind was made up. "Be careful, Alpha." Back in his wolf form, Kieran ran, his paws barely touching the ground. The woods seemed to press in around him, the trees like silent sentinels watching his every move. The strange energy pulsed stronger now, a beacon guiding him toward the edge of the forest, toward the solitary cottage nestled amongst the trees. He slowed as he neared the boundary. The scent of Talia, faint and floral, mingling with the ancient magic. He could see the faint glow of lamplight spilling from her windows, painting squares of warmth on the encroaching darkness. He hesitated at the edge of Erepshah. The trees. Torn. He was an alpha, sworn to protect his pack. Approaching a solitary human was outside of his jurisdiction, outside of his responsibility. But the pull was too strong. The whisper in the woods too insistent. He had to know what was happening. He stepped out of the shadows, the forest holding its breath around him. He felt the weight of centuries of unspoken rules, the pressure of tradition, and the undeniable unsettling pull of the unknown. He walked toward the light, toward the woman who might be the key to unraveling the mystery that threatened to consume the Northwood pack. He couldn't explain it, but it wasn't just the disturbance in the woods that called to him. It was her. He was drawn to her in ways that defied logic. The alpha who remembered the air tasted first of pine, rich loam, and a hauntingly fragile floral note he couldn't quite place. Slowing, Kieran shouldered aside a snow-laden bough, his senses sharpening. It wasn't the putrid reek of dark sorcery anticipated, yet the air fairly pulsed with a presence undeniably linked to this place. Then he noticed her. By the stream she stood, frigid water swirling about scuffed boots. Her back faced him. A simple twilight-colored cloak hugged tight against the bite of the wind. A spill of raven hair cascaded down her spine, catching the moon's meager light. An unnerving serenity cloaked her, a quiet fortitude radiating outward. He approached with measured steps, mindful of startling her. His boots crunched on the frozen undergrowth, the sound magnified in the hushed wood. She pivoted, a motion as fluid cane. As a startled doe, her eyes, the shade of rain-slicked moss, swam with a sorrow that resonated deep within him. "You shouldn't be here," she breathed, her voice a mere exhalation on the breeze. A lovely voice, tinged with warning, perhaps resignation? He halted a few paces away, the space crackling with unvoiced tension. Magic vibrated around her, a subtle tremor that raised gooseflesh on his arms. "I felt a pull," he confessed, choosing words with care. "Something drew me." Her gaze flickered, assessing him. "There is nothing for you," she countered, her tone hardening. "Just go." He studied her features. The delicate arc of her jaw, the slight knit of her brow. She possessed a stark beauty, but something ran deeper. A profound weariness haunted her eyes, striking a chord he hadn't known existed. An instinct to protect, long dormant, sparked to life. "I'm not sure I can," he admitted, his voice a murmur. "Kieran, Alpha of the Northwood pack." A hesitant smile touched his lips. "And you are?" Hesitation flickered across her face as her eyes darted away, weighing invisible options. "It's immaterial," she finally stated, her voice devoid of inflection. "My name. It won't matter come morning." "Why do you say that?" he inquired, curiosity ignited. She sighed, a sound like dissipating vapor in the frigid air. "It's complicated." Clutching herself, she seemed to battle a chill that permeated beyond the skin. "Just leave, Alpha. You'll soon forget you ever saw me." Kieran's brow furrowed. A heartbreaking finality laced her words, a sense of unavoidable fate he couldn't decipher. "I don't forget easily," he affirmed, his tone unwavering. A humorless twist formed her lips. "You will," she insisted. "Everyone does." He drew nearer, compelled despite the caution in her gaze. "I'm not everyone," he said softly. His intense stare seemed to unsettle her. She recoiled, her eyes widening with a blend of fear, perhaps even hope. "Please," she implored, her voice cracking. "Just leave me alone." He ached to stay, to unravel the enigma that enshrouded her, to alleviate the anguish etched within her eyes. Yet, the raw fear twisting her features, the desperate plea for solitude, was undeniable. He couldn't force her. "All right," he relented, reluctantly. "I'll go, but I'll return." She offered no reply, merely turning, melting into the shadows. He tracked her departure, straining to catch a trace. A sharp sense of loss resonated as she vanished. He lingered, the wood's silence amplifying the moment. He should return to the pack, report his findings, or rather, who he'd found. But an immutable sense of leaving something essential tugged at him. Turning, he retraced his steps towards pack territory. Her image burned into his memory. He dissected their brief exchange, seeking logic in her cryptic pronouncements. "It won't matter come morning. You'll soon forget you ever saw me, everyone does. What could it signify? Was she afflicted? Manipulating his perception somehow?" Uncertainty gnawed at him, yet he sensed a connection between her plight and the dark magic near the boundary. He was nearing the forest's edge when it struck him. He froze, his pulse slamming in his chest. A name surfacing in his consciousness, clear as crystal. Talia. He recalled her name. Wheeling around, his breath hitched. He remembered her name. Only after she was beyond reach. He remembered her. Impossible. They had just met, and yet remembrance bloomed. Kieran bolted, tearing through the undergrowth, calling out her name. "Talia! Talia!" His cry echoed, a desperate entreaty against the encroaching dark. He had to find her. He had to decipher why he remembered. He had to fathom what was happening to her. He had to know her. He ran until his lungs screamed. His muscles burned, yet she remained elusive. Vanished. Only the rustling wind and sentinel trees bore witness. He stood motionless, enveloped by the darkness. The name Talia resonating a beacon amidst an unknown curse. He possessed a name, a memory, and he would utilize them to find her once more. A fragile hope the air held a morning chill, a biting contrast to the storm brewing within Kieran. He retraced his path, Talia's memory a wavering candle flame against the gales of doubt swirling in his head. He relocated the stream, sunlight splintering through the prey. Canopy. Yet the scene felt wrong, incomplete. He surveyed the verge, his wolf senses keen for her redolence. A whisper of wildflowers mingled with something untamed, akin to the electric tang before a thunderstorm. Then he detected her. Further along the bank, partially veiled by a willow's weeping curtain, Talia gathered herbs, her movements measured and guarded. Approaching slowly, his heart hammered a heavy rhythm against his ribs. "Talia," he murmured, wary of startling her. She stilled, her spine rigid. Turning at length, her expression was guarded, her eyes, the shade of bruised skies, narrowed with distrust. "You," she breathed, her tone devoid of welcome, a flat declaration. "You returned." Kieran halted several feet away, sensing her apprehension. "I did. I needed to see you were all right." A mirthless sound rattled from her throat. "All right? How quaint. I told you to leave me be. I warned you. I know," he conceded, his voice soft, "but I couldn't. I remembered." That's not supposed to happen, is it?" A fleeting shadow crossed her gaze, perhaps fear, or a fragile hope swiftly snuffed out. "No," she retorted, her voice sharp. "It's meaningless. You'll forget. They always do." He edged forward, driven by a compulsion to close the gap between them, but she recoiled as if burned. "Stay back," she hissed, a thread of warning in her voice. "Don't feign caring. It's just cruel." Kieran froze, his hands suspended. "I'm not pretending, Talia. I don't understand this, but I'm not going to forget you." She scrutinized him, her expression a locked box. "You say that now," she murmured, her voice a mere exhalation. "They all say that. So charming, so promising, and then nothing." I awaken, and they're gone, eyes blank. They don't even recognize me. He heard the pain woven into each syllable, the years of desolation clinging to her like grave clothes. I'm not them, he affirmed, his voice resolute. I won't forget. Everyone forgets, she countered, her voice rising, edged with bitterness. My parents, my friends, everyone. It's my curse. It's best if you simply go. Spare yourself the trouble. Spare me the humiliation. She spun away, resuming her foraging with jerky, agitated movements. Kieran remained rooted, watching her. He felt the magic clinging to her, a swirling eddy of loneliness and sorrow. A palpable thing, a weight in the air. He considered his pack, their strength and abiding loyalty. He couldn't fathom a life so utterly isolated. What if I could help? He ventured, his voice a low rumble. Her shoulders slumped further. Help me? She echoed, her voice laced with profound disbelief. No one can. This is my fate. I'm meant to be alone. I don't believe that, he countered, stepping closer again, ignoring her involuntary flinch. Fate bends. Curses break. She wheeled to face him, her eyes holding a raw, desperate supplication. Don't, she pleaded, her voice cracking like thin ice. Don't give me hope. I can't bear to lose it again. Kieran's heart ached. He glimpsed the vulnerability beneath her hardened shell, the fragile ember she struggled to extinguish. He knew he walked a treacherous path, one shrouded in mystery, yet he wouldn't turn. Away. I'm not going anywhere, Talia, he declared, his voice unwavering. I'm here. And I'm going to help you, whether you want me to or not. She bored into him, her gaze searching for any flicker of deceit, any premonition of eventual abandonment. He met her scrutiny, his own eyes filled with sincerity and a growing resolve. He couldn't predict the future, but a certainty resonated deep within him. He would not abandon her. A heavy silence settled between them, disturbed only by the stream's gentle susurrus and the leaves whispering on the breeze. At last, Talia spoke, her voice a fragile thread. Why? She asked, unshed tears glimmering in her eyes. Why do this? Why risk everything for someone like me? Kieran lacked a polished response, devoid of logic. He only knew that something within him had irrevocably shifted the moment he saw her, a primal urge to safeguard and to connect. I don't know, he admitted honestly. I only know that I have to. I can't explain it, but I feel drawn to you, Talia. And I won't let you face this alone. She averted her gaze, unable to maintain eye contact. You'll regret this, she breathed, her voice thick with a profound, abiding sorrow. You all regret it. He reached out, gently enveloping her hand, her skin cool and delicate beneath his touch. She recoiled initially, but remained. Her fingers trembled lightly within his. Maybe, he responded, his voice soft, but I'm willing to gamble. He locked onto her gaze, his own brimming with fierce determination. Tell me, he urged. Tell me everything. Hesitation warred with a desperate yearning for connection. Years of honed self-preservation fought a siren call. Could she trust him? Dare she hope for a different outcome? The dread of oblivion was a constant shadow, a specter haunting her waking hours. Yet, the look in his eyes, the steadfast sincerity in his voice, it was a lure too tempting to resist. Slowly, tentatively, she began, her voice a low tremor. The chronicle of her life, a life lived in the shadows of erasure, unfurling like a macabre and tragic ballad. Birds caroled their melodies, oblivious to the sorrow permeating the air. The stream babbled onward, a relentless reminder of the river of time, a river that would, ultimately, wash him from her memory, as it had everyone else. But for now, in this moment, she held his attention, his compassion, his hope. And for the first time in countless seasons, Talia permitted herself the luxury of a sliver of belief. Perhaps, just perhaps, things could deviate from her expected path. Tokens of remembrance, the dawn arrived subtly, a gentle luminosity nudging Talia from sleep. A familiar solitude, a dull ache, settled into her spirit as she rose. Today, like the countless before, stretched ahead as a vacant canvas. A clean slate, perhaps, but one destined to be scrubbed clean by day's end. She steeled herself for the customary blank stares of her parents, the polite confusion blooming briefly before automated affection kicked in. But as she pushed open her door, something defied the routine. A small posy of wildflowers rested against the aged wood, bound with humble twine. Field blooms, daisies, cornflowers, delicate Queen Anne's lace, their heads heavy with morning moisture. Not commercially grown. These had been gathered by hand from the surrounding meadows. Talia faltered, her pulse quickening like a trapped bird's wing beats. A gift? Intended for her. Surely a misdelivery. But no one was in sight. No sign the wildflowers belonged elsewhere. She lifted them, their fragile grace a stark contrast to her own desolate reality. A solitary bead of dew clung to a petal, quivering like a suspended tear. Indoors, she nestled them in a chipped vase on the kitchen table, a vivid splash of color in her otherwise monochrome world. She lingered over them long after her meager breakfast was consumed, a nascent hope flickering to life within her. The subsequent day brought another surprise. Not blossoms this time, but a book. A slender collection of verse, propped against her entryway as if patiently awaiting discovery. Songs of the Wild Soul. The title proclaimed, embossed in time-worn gold. Talia picked it up, fingertips tracing the softened cover. The author was unknown to her, and a cursory glance revealed it wasn't hers. Another mistake, without doubt. Yet, as she leafed through the pages, the poems captivated her. They spoke of isolation and yearning, of nature's hushed beauty, of an indomitable spirit within. Each verse echoed her own suppressed emotions, the silent desires that haunted her in slumber. One poem, in particular, resonated. The worn pathway, though obscured by green, still guides where the spirit longs to convene. Though shadows lurk and memories dim, a spark remains to conquer all within. Talia closed the book, her eyes stinging. The words felt tailor-made, a clandestine message across the chasm of her loneliness. Who was behind this? Who knew her intimately enough to choose such a present? The answer, she suspected, was both terrifying and intensely thrilling. The following morn, the offering was distinct once more. No ephemeral bloom, nor whispered word, but something substantial, tactile. A meticulously carved wooden bird perched upon her threshold. A robin, its chest painted a bold scarlet, its diminutive eyes gleaming with lifelike vitality. Talia cradled it in her palm, turning it over. The artistry was exquisite, the minutiae so fine she could practically feel the plumage's texture. More than just a carving, it was a sculpture, whispering of liberation and optimism. She traced the smooth wood, a strange warmth blooming within. She knew, with an certainty that settled in her core, that it originated with Kieran. He was testing the confines of her curse, probing the invisible barriers that separated her. Trepidation tangled with an insatiable yearning. She longed to believe, to yield to the notion that someone could genuinely perceive her, genuinely remember her. But the quet, years of disillusionment, the countless mornings of erasure, had raised ramparts around her heart. She couldn't risk hope. For someone like her, hope was a dangerous indulgence, invariably leading to devastation. That evening, as the sun dipped, painting the garden in elongated shadows, Talia found herself drawn to the forest's edge. Kieran was there, she knew, observing, biding his time. She sensed his presence like a subtle current in the atmosphere, a silent promise hanging in the air. She hesitated, her hand hovering over the gate's latch. Should she remain inside, secure within her well-worn solitude, or venture forth, wagering everything for a taste of connection? She closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and decided. Unlatching the gate, she stepped into the encroaching darkness. The air was crisp against her skin, scented with pine and damp soil. She moved slowly, senses heightened. Searching. "Kieran?" she called, her voice a bare breath. Moments later, he materialized from the shadows, his form outlined against the fading afterglow. He was even more striking than she recalled, his gaze burning with an intensity both intimidating and captivating. "Talia," he murmured, his voice a deep resonance. "I wasn't certain you would appear." "Why are you doing this?" she questioned, her voice shaky. "Why these gifts?" He advanced, closing the gap between them. "Because I remember you, Talia, and I want you to understand you are not forsaken." "But you will forget," she responded, despair coating her words. "Everyone invariably does." "Not I," he affirmed, his eyes locked on hers. "I promise I will not." Talia desperately wished to trust him, but dread held her captive, the accumulated distrust of years too deeply embedded. "You misunderstand," she said, shaking her head. "It's not that simple. The curset's strength is overwhelming." "Then we shall shatter it," he declared, resolve lacing his voice. "Together." She scrutinized him, searching for any flicker of uncertainty, any premonition of the inevitable forgetting. She only discovered sincerity there, a fierce, unwavering faith in her. A perilous offering, this hope, but also the most exquisite thing she had ever known. "How?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "How can we undo something that has been with me from the start?" Kieran took her hand, his touch sending a tremor through her. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But I will discover a way. I pledge to you, Talia. I will not allow you to be forgotten." A pause, his eyes delving into hers, attempting to convey the depth of his determination. "And in the interim," he continued, his voice gentling, "I will continue offering tokens of remembrance, small assurances that you are witnessed, that you are cherished, that you are loved." A wooden bird, slick with morning dew, perched on her sill, a poignant echo of someone's memory. Its presence was a constant, hushed counterpoint to her solitude. Talia's fingers traced the sculpted plumage, the polished surface a foreign texture against her woodswoman's calloused hands. For weeks, her cottage had been her entire world, a self-imposed exile sparked by the mysterious gifts. Fear, an old and unwelcome friend, had been joined by a nascent hope, a tender shoot threatening to crack the hardened earth around her heart. The note, slipped beneath the avian offering, was disarmingly simple, Woods, familiar spot. Noon, no signature, no embellishment, just a stark invitation. A dare, perhaps. Her breath caught. Noon felt both impossibly distant and crushingly imminent. She met the gaze of the woman reflected in the grimy window pane. A wraith, haunted by yearning and dread, stared back. What remained to lose? Her life was barren. Except this man, this defiance of the curse. Sunlight, fractured by the canopy, painted the forest floor as she arrived, the air thick with the resinous aroma of pine and decaying leaves. Months had passed since she'd ventured so far, her trepidation a tighter tether than usual. He was there, already, leaning against the gnarled trunk of an ancient oak, his figure a vibrant intrusion on the wood's quietude. Kieran. The name felt foreign, a forgotten melody on her tongue. He straightened at her approach, his eyes that familiar warm shade of brown holding an intensity that both beckoned and terrified. "Talia," he greeted, his voice a resonant timbre that resonated in her chest. "I wondered if you would." She swallowed against a suddenly parched throat. I had to know." He pushed off the tree, closing the space between them, not crowding her, but near enough that his warmth bled into her chilled skin. "Know what? If this is real," she breathed, the words barely audible. "If you are real." He reached, his hand hovering, a hesitant offering near her face, then stopped. "I'm real, Talia, and this is more genuine than anything I've ever experienced." Hours dissolved into conversation. He spoke of his pack, the responsibilities weighing on an alpha's shoulders, the trials of leadership. She listened, captivated, her own existence a muted contrast. Her days blurred into a repetitive cycle, waking, remembering her identity, watching the world erase her again. She recounted her quiet life in the cottage, her garden, the books that served as her only companions. He listened with a focus that made her feel truly seen for the first time in what felt like forever. "What does it feel like?" he asked, his voice hushed, echoing her own unspoken pain. "To be forgotten." She averted her gaze, studying the lines etched into her palm. "It's like being a phantom, existing yet insubstantial, watching life unfold without you, knowing you're forever excluded." He reached then, gently tilting her chin, compelling her to meet his gaze. "You're not a phantom, Talia. You're here. You're tangible. And I see you." A single tear escaped, tracing a hot path down her cheek. Years had passed since she last wept, since she'd learned to internalize her sorrow. But now, beneath the unwavering scrutiny of Kieran's gaze, the carefully constructed dam shattered. "It's not just the solitude," she choked, the words erupting in a torrent. "It's the ever-present dread that I'll simply vanish, that even I will lose myself." He drew her close, enveloping her in his embrace. She hesitated, a flicker of resistance, before melting into his arms, burying her face against his shoulder. The scent of pine mingled with something primal and wild, a grounding force in the dizzying rush of emotion. "You won't," he murmured, his voice thick with compassion. "I won't allow it." They remained entwined, the stillness punctuated only by the whispering leaves and the melodies of hidden birds. A fragile haven, a stolen fragment of joy in a life overshadowed by grief. Within that embrace, a spark of hope flickered, the possibility that things might alter course. As the sun began its descent, painting the forest floor in long, dramatic shadows, Kieran reluctantly pulled away, his hands lingering on her arms. "I have to leave," he said, a note of regret coloring his tone. "But I'll return tomorrow. Same time, same place." She nodded, speechless, her heart brimming with gratitude and trepidation. "Tomorrow," she whispered, the word a promise, a plea. A genuine smile illuminated his face, a breathtaking display of warmth. "Tomorrow." As she retraced her steps to the cottage, the woods seemed less menacing, the shadows less oppressive. The carved bird on her windowsill no longer mocked her isolation but stood as a beacon of hope, a testament to the unbelievable. She was remembered. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was sufficient to dismantle the walls that had imprisoned her for so long. Yet, a deeper realization began to dawn. It wasn't solely about being remembered. It was about being witnessed, being understood, being embraced for who she was, a notion she hadn't dared entertain until this very moment. Echoes of the past, a cool, bracing air, nipped at Talia's exposed skin as they walked, the mingled aromas of resin and upturned earth invigorating her. A strange tranquility settled over her, a fragile counterpoint to the haunting reality of her fading existence. Kieran, a steadfast presence at her side, had insisted on this excursion to a place of significance within the pack's territory. "It's vital you see it," he'd offered, his expression enigmatic. Their path snaked deeper into the verdant embrace of the woods, peeling away from the clamor of the pack's daily routines until they reached a secluded clearing. There, nestled among venerable trees, stood a time-worn stone edifice, its windows like vacant eyes staring into the past. "The pack repository," Kieran murmured, his tone reverential. "It safeguards our legacy, our narratives, what we've let slip away." Talia's hesitation was palpable. "Slipped away?" "Not entirely vanished," he amended, a spark of guarded emotion in his gaze. "Echoes persist within these texts, yet time erodes all." He eased open the ponderous wooden portal, revealing a shadowy interior. The atmosphere within was heavy with the musty fragrance of antiquated paper and cured leather, a testament to untold tales awaiting rediscovery. Seemingly endless rows of shelves ascended into the gloom, laden with bound volumes, rolled parchments, and ancient clay tablets. Guiding her with a gentle hand, Kieran led her through the labyrinthine stacks. Here, the Northwood Pack safeguards its profoundest secrets, its triumphs celebrated, its failures chronicled. He halted before one particularly imposing shelf, its surface coated in a layer of undisturbed dust. "And where we might uncover answers concerning your predicament." A tremor ran through Talia. Answers? Could such a thing truly exist? She had long steeled herself to her spectral fate, resigning herself to becoming a ghost in her own life. Yet, Kieran's unwavering faith, his refusal to let her dissolve into nothingness, had rekindled a fragile ember of hope. He reached for a substantial, leather-bound tome, its cover softened by countless years of handling. As he lifted it, a plume of dust billowed, eliciting a cough from Talia. "This is among the most venerable scriptures in the repository," Kieran explained, carefully laying the book open. The pages showcased intricate calligraphy, illuminated with pigments faded by age. "It houses the prophecies of the Northwood Pack, handed down across generations." He began to intone the words, his voice resonating and low, filling the hushed space with echoes of what had been. The verbiage was archaic, steeped in symbolism and oblique allusions. Talia listened with fierce concentration, striving to unlock the veiled truths concealed within the prophecy. "When shadows deepen and the moon weeps crimson tears, a scion shall emerge, branded by oblivion's mark, forsaken by all, save one heart aflamin'. Kieran broke the spell, his eyes locking onto Talia's. This forgotten child holds the pack's very future in their grasp. Their anguish is our vulnerability, their fortitude our deliverance. A shiver traced its icy path down Talia's spine. Forgotten child. The phrase reverberated within her, stirring an odd sense of recognition. Could it be? Could this prophecy be about her? There's more to it, Kieran continued, turning the page. When treachery festers and darkness encroaches, the forgotten child shall awaken a power long dormant, a force capable of either sundering or mending the ancient ties that bind us. He regarded her, his expression earnest. The prophecy speaks of a choice, Talia. A choice that will determine the destiny of the Northwood Pack. A torrent of emotions washed over Talia. Trepidation, bewilderment, and a nascent spark of something akin to purpose. For the first time she could recall, she felt like more than a mere affliction, more than just someone doomed to be forgotten. She was bound to something larger, something venerable and potent. Do you think it's me? She stammered, her voice barely audible. Kieran reached out, gently cradling her cheek. I can't claim to know, Talia, but I do know that you exist. You are tangible, and I remember you. And that, in itself, is a defiance of this blight. His touch ignited a wave of warmth within her, a sensation of connection that overshadowed the fear and uncertainty. In that instant, standing amongst the dusty tomes and resonant echoes of the past, a sliver of hope pierced the gloom. Perhaps, just perhaps, she wasn't condemned to isolation. What if the prophecy remains unfulfilled? Talia queried, her voice trembling ever so slightly. Kieran's hand tightened on hers. The prophecy speaks of shadows overtaking us, of venerable bonds snapping. It foretells the demise of the Northwood Pack. He paused, his gaze unwavering. But I refuse to allow that, Talia. I will dedicate every fiber of my being to safeguarding you, to aiding you in realizing your destiny, whatever that may entail. His words were a pledge, a vow etched into the stillness of the archive. Talia believed him. She had to. He was the sole beacon who remembered, the solitary soul who saw her, the only one who extended a chance at an existence beyond the curse. They spent hours within the repository, carefully examining the archaic scriptures, searching for additional details regarding the forgotten child and the prophecy. As dusk encroached, casting elongated silhouettes across the shelves, Kieran closed the volume. It's growing late, he noted, a hint of concern coloring his voice. We ought to return to the settlement. Talia nodded, her mind still struggling to assimilate all that she had learned. As they retraced their steps through the forest, she remained haunted by the sensation that they stood on the precipice of something transformative, something capable of reshaping everything. Back at the settlement, a palpable energy permeated the air. Pack members busied themselves with preparations for the evening hunt, their voices alive with mirth and anticipation. Talia observed them, feeling like an outsider gazing in. She yearned to partake in their community, to experience the sense of belonging that had eluded her. Noticing her reticence, Kieran placed a grounding hand on her shoulder. Don't fret, Talia. You're not abandoned. He ushered her towards his private quarters, a spacious chamber containing books and maps. A fire danced merrily in the hearth, casting a cozy glow on the surrounding walls. Rest for a while, he suggested. I must attend to some pressing matters, but I shall return soon. Talia nodded, thankful for the solitude. She settled into a comfortable armchair by the fire, her thoughts a whirlwind of prophecy and the forgotten child. Was she truly destined to shape the fate of the Northwood Pack? And if that were the case, what implications did it hold for her future? As the fire dwindled and the shadows performed their silent ballet, Talia succumbed to sleep, her dreams populated by ancient prophecies and half-recalled memories. She dreamed of a child, lost and alone, wandering through a dark wood, searching for somewhere to call home. Upon waking, she found the fire reduced to glowing embers, the room bathed in ethereal moonlight. Kieran sat beside her, watching her with a soft smile. "How do you fare?" he inquired. "Confused," Talia confessed, "and somewhat frightened." Kieran clasped her hand, his touch reassuring. "I understand it's a lot to process, Talia, but we shall unravel it together. I pledge it." He leaned in closer, his gaze meeting hers. "You are no longer alone," he breathed, his voice thick with emotion. "I am here for Ka. You, always." And in that instant, as their eyes connected in the soft, lunar glow, Talia knew that her battle extended beyond simply fighting the curse. She was fighting for something greater, something transcending herself. She was fighting for a chance at a life, a chance at affection, a chance to finally find her place. The witch's grimoire Lyra, slender as a reed yet bearing ancient wisdom in her gaze, threaded her way through the Northwood Pack's archive. Moonbeams, fractured by the high arched windows, cast swirling constellations of dust across ranks of slumbering volumes. A soft hum vibrated from her as her fingertips skimmed along the leathered spines, usually a calming ritual within these soundless halls. But a disquiet had settled upon her, an unsettling sensation of imbalance. Pausing before the section on forbidden arts and antidotes, her eyes snagged on a void on the bottom shelf. Small, easily overlooked, it nonetheless screamed its absence to her. "Librarian's awareness. Kneeling." She delved into the gloom, her hand closing on a chilled, polished surface. She drew it forth. A journal. Bound in Nirabani leather, the cover was unadorned, save for a subtle sigil near the spine. A serpent Ouroboros. Consuming itself. A shiver traced her spine. This was no ordinary codex. Later, Kieran and Talia huddled over a stout oak table in a secluded corner of the library. The journal splayed open between them, its pages awash in a cramped, almost indecipherable hand. The air thrummed with palpable anticipation, laced with dread. Lyra, etched with worry, stood sentinel nearby, her hands clasped tight. "I've encountered nothing like it," she breathed, her voice a scant murmur. "The material, the construction, it reeks of antiquity. And the script, it seems to writhe and shift before my eyes." Kieran raked fingers through his already unruly hair. He'd fought for hours to wrest meaning from the script, but it resisted him fiercely. The language was a hoary dialect of Old English, imbued with a peculiar, almost arcane rhythm. He glanced at Talia, her brow a knot of concentration, her gaze devouring the page with an intensity that belied her delicate constitution. He understood the weight of this moment for her. A chance, however fragile, to comprehend the affliction that had shaped her life. "I see a pattern," Talia breathed suddenly, her voice thin. "The symbols. They're not just mindless marks. They're runes. Obscured, twisted, but runes, nonetheless." She indicated a cluster of sigils near the page's crown. "These they're linked to old witchcraft, dark arts." Kieran leaned closer, tracing her finger with his eyes. He recognized some of the glyph's symbols of constraint, suffering, and a retribution. A cold dread coiled in his gut. "This isn't just a journal," he rasped. It's a grimoire. A spellbook. Lyra gasped, her hand flying to cover her mouth. A witch? But Northwood hasn't seen a witch in centuries. Centuries, Kieran echoed, his voice a low growl of suspicion. Yet tales persist. Whispers of a witch scorned, betrayed, one who vowed vengeance upon the Alpha line. He met Talia's gaze, his heart hammering. He resisted the conclusion, but the pieces clicked into place with chilling precision. He began to read aloud, slowly, laboriously excavating the ancient words. The phrases were heavy, steeped in resentment and unslakable fury. He gifted me promises, his very essence. Swore his devotion would blaze eternal, yet he craved power. His pack reigned supreme, abandoning me to ravenous wolves. The Alpha, his name a curse, stole my love, my existence. And for this his bloodline shall writhe. His progeny shall taste the sting of bereavement, the agony of agony. Oblivion. Oh? The pronouncements reverberated in the stillness, stifling and malevolent. Talia recoiled, as if physically assaulted. The trail echoes here. Kieran pressed on, his voice constricted. A forbidden bond sundered between a Northwood Alpha and a sorceress. He pledged everything, then discarded her, prioritizing his pack. Maddened, she unleashed a curse designed to erase his descendants from the collective memory, consigning them to a lonely, desolate existence. He paused, his eyes locking with Talia's. A curse that resonates disturbingly closely. Talia stared into the script, her mind in turmoil. The words blurred before her, each syllable a hammer blow against her fragile hope. Witchcrafted betrayal, a curse. It all seemed unbearably cruel, profoundly unjust. Was this her immutable fate? To be nothing more than a pawn in a Nyold feud? But why me? She whispered, her voice fracturing. Why am I the singular target? Why am I the forgotten child foreseen? Kieran reached out, his hand enclosing hers. His touch, warm and sure, anchored her. A lifeline in the swirling vortex of despair. We don't know, yet, he affirmed, his voice steel-edged. But we will unearth the truth. We will unravel this curse, Talia. I swear it. Lyra approached, compassion filling her gaze. The grimoire may hold the key, she offered quietly. It might reveal the specifics of the curse, the conditions necessary to break it. Kieran nodded, resolution hardening his features. He returned to the grimoire, his gaze dissecting the pages with renewed fervor. The script was dense, tangled with arcane figures and puzzling riddles. He spent hours immersed in the text, peeling back the layers of the witch's vengeful pronouncements. He gleaned that the curse was not merely a general amnesia spell. It was intricately woven, synchronized with the blood moon cycle, fueled by the witch's unending rage. And there was something more, something deeply alarming. A passage hinting at a sacrifice, a blood offering required to sustain the curse's potency. The blood moon bolsters the curse's hold, Kieran murmured, his voice barely audible. And to truly anchor it, to ensure its eternal dominion, a sacrifice is mandated, the heart's blood of the betrayer's linen. He lifted his gaze to Talia, his eyes widened in dawning horror. Talia the witchy, she's not simply aiming to erase you. She's trying to end you. The revelation hung, a palpable oppression. Talia gasped, her face draining of color. She had perceived her life as cursed, but never imagined it faced such immediate, mortal peril. Lyra cried out, a hand fluttering to her mouth. No, she protested, her voice trembling. That cannot be. We will prevent it. Kieran rose, his eyes kindling with fierce anger. She will not touch her, he vowed, his tone edged with primal possessiveness. I will never allow it. He faced Talia, his gaze radiating unwavering resolve. We're severing this curse, Talia. We will discover a method to thwart her, and we face it together. He drew her close, folding her within his protective embrace. He would not permit her to be forgotten. He would not permit her to be sacrificed. He would defy the curse, defy the sorceress, defy destiny itself to safeguard her, because in her eyes he beheld not a cursed outcast, but a woman of inner fortitude, striking resilience and limitless potential. And he knew, with a certainty that resonated to his core, that he was falling irrevocably in love with her. The shadow of the blood moon, the ancient pages crinkled softly as Lyra, fingers trembling, turned them, a musty aroma of ancient ink and dormant enchantment swirling in the air. Talia, nearby, felt her spirits sink. Each faint sound underscored the dwindling hours left to her. Kieran's steadfast presence was a bulwark against the encroaching gloom, his set jaw mirroring her own desperate longing for a future. Here, Lyra whispered, her voice frail. The blood moon, its influence is detailed. She coughed lightly and began to decipher the script, the archaic words a somber melody on her tongue. With each cycle steeped in crimson light, the connection phrase, the forgotten child recedes, becoming spectral in their own life. Memories, once fleeting glimpses, vanish entirely, until, at the final moon's apex, the child is devoured, utterly erased, leaving not even an echo. The pronouncement dropped like a stone into a still pond, spreading ripples of dread. Talia felt an icy tendril grip her spine, a cold far deeper than winter's bite. It wasn't mere oblivion that loomed, it was cessation itself. She glanced at Kieran, his gaze a fervent shield, offering both solace and a chilling premonition. The final moon? Kieran's tone rumbled, laced with menace. How much time? Lyra hastily scanned more pages, her brow creased in concentration. The text mentions telltale signs, increasing lapses, moments of displacement. Then, she paused, swallowing with difficulty. The next blood moon. It's less than a month hence. 30 days. Talia's breath caught sharp in her throat. A month to undo a curse woven over centuries. A month to escape utter annihilation. A tidal wave of despair threatened to submerge her. No, Kieran asserted, his hand clamping around hers. We refuse to allow that. His voice, a deep-throated growl, pulsed with a primal determination that resonated within her very core. We will find a way to shatter this curse, Talia. I swear it. Talia searched his face, seeking any tremor of doubt, any suggestion of faltering conviction. She found only unyielding resolve, a fiery passion mirroring her own fierce craving to live, to be cherished, to endure in memory. This journal, Talia pressed, her voice gaining strength, bolstered by Kieran's unwavering faith. Does it offer any path to breaking the curse? Any insight into the original treachery? Lyra nodded, her fingers tracing the faded characters. It alludes to atonement, that the trail must be unveiled, the injustice redressed, the wronged party must be propitiated. Propitiated, Kieran echoed, his forehead furrowed. What form does that take? Sacrifice? Some ritualistic act? I can't say for sure, Lyra confessed, frustration coloring her tone. The particulars are elusive, couched in metaphor and enigmatic pronouncements. It speaks of uncovering the heart of the betrayal, the origin point of the encroaching darkness. The heart of the betrayal, Talia murmured, her thoughts churning. That could signify anything, be anywhere. She pictured the witch, her name erased by time, her motives interred beneath the weight of history. What drove her to enact such a vengeful curse? What irreplaceable loss fueled her actions? We must excavate the past, Kieran stated, his voice resolute. We must unearth every scrap of information about this witch, about the original transgression, about anything that might aid us in breaking this curse. But where do we even begin? Talia asked, her voice tinged with desperation. Time is slipping away. We begin with the known, Kieran replied, his eyes locking with hers. We begin with this journal. We start with Lyra's expertise in pack lore. We begin with each other. He squeezed her hand, his touch sending a jolt of warmth through her. We'll face this together, Talia. We won't let you fade. Lyra concurred, her eyes gleaming with renewed purpose. I'll comb the archives, consult the elders, leave no avenue unexplored. We will find a way to reverse this curse, Talia. I promise you. Talia looked from Kieran to Lyra, her chest swelling with a blend of gratitude and budding hope. She was not alone. She had allies. Together, they would confront the encroaching darkness, combat the curse, defy the blood moon's ominous shadow. Agreed, Talia declared, her voice ringing clear and strong. Let's do this. Let's discover how to break free. The ensuing days dissolved into a frantic scramble of research and exploration. Lyra vanished into the archives, engrossed in deciphering antiquated texts and unearthed scrolls, seeking any thread that might guide them to the truth. Kieran dedicated his days to honing his combat skills, fortifying himself for whatever trials lay ahead. Talia, meanwhile, fought to seize hold of fleeting memories, battling to preserve the essence of her identity before the curse could claim it entirely. One evening, as the sun descended, painting elongated shadows across the forest floor, Lyra emerged from the archives, her complexion wan and strained. I've unearthed something, she announced, her voice barely audible. A name, a place, a connection. She led them to a hidden chamber concealed beneath the pack house, a room sealed off for generations. Within, they discovered an assemblage of bygone relics and artifacts. Among them was a small wooden coffer carved with intricate depictions of wolves entwined with witches. This box, Lyra disclosed, her fingers trembling as she unlatched it, belonged to Aisling, the witch who cast the curse. Inside lay a single object, a silver locket, its luster dulled by the passage of time. Upon opening it, Talia found a miniature painting of a youthful woman, her eyes bearing a palpable sorrow. This is she, Lyra breathed. Aisling. But who's with her? Adjacent to Aisling was an image of a man. He seemed vaguely recognizable. Isn't that Alpha Kieran? Talia questioned, squinting for a closer view. The founder of the Northwood Pack? Lyra gasped, concurring with a nod. Indeed, but why would she possess his portrait? And why do they appear so intimate? The journal, Kieran interjected, his brow furrowed in thought. It hinted at betrayal. What if Aisling and Theron were lovers? What if he betrayed her trust somehow? Talia shuddered. A plausible theory. A concealed secret obscured beneath layers of history. But what could have motivated Theron to betray Aisling's affections? And how did that betrayal trigger the curse that now imperiled her very existence? Only one path remains to unravel the truth, Talia stated, her voice imbued with nascent determination. We must illuminate the events that transpired between Aisling and Theron. We must expose the secrets underpinning the betrayal. But how? Lyra asked, her voice laced with uncertainty. They are long deceased. How can we possibly uncover their concealed truths? We will find a path, Kieran vowed, his eyes meeting Talia's. We must, because if we fail, Talia will cease to be, and I will not stand idly by. Talia nodded, her heart now a crucible of burgeoning hope and lingering fear. The hourglass was emptying. The blood moon drew inexorably closer. Her very existence teetered in the balance. They would expose the truth, irrespective of the personal cost. She would not be forgotten. She would not fade into oblivion. She would fight for her right to live, for the enduring power of love, for the promise of her future. Therefore, let us unearth the secrets this pack has striven so diligently to conceal, Talia declared, taking the locket from Lyra's extended hand. The cold metal seared her palm, a stark reminder of the looming darkness and the solemn vow she had made to herself, to break the curse and, finally, truly embrace a life worth living. Following the whispers beyond faces, the journal's ink bled into renditions of landscapes touched by an artist's hand. A wizened oak, its boughs like grasping claws against a perpetually dusky sky. A river, struggling through a bed of slick, granite stones. A cavern's maw, a silent scream, petrified in stone. Kieran's calloused finger traced the oak's outline. That treette stood sentinel near the old training grounds. Haven't seen it in an age. Talia moved closer, inhaling the perfume of parchment and forgotten enchantments. The journal mentions a rendezvous, where shadows waltz beneath the gaze of the elder. Could be the oak. A tremor, less fear, more anticipation, chased down her spine. The chase was on. Dawn. We leave then, Kieran declared, his tone leaving no room for debate. He wouldn't see her face this darkness isolated. He wouldn't let her be consumed. As first light painted the firmament in shades of plum and tentative gold, they departed. The air, sharp and invigorating, carried the fragrance of pine needles and moist soil. Talia felt an unfamiliar buoyancy. A sense of purpose rekindled. Each stride was a small rebellion against the curse, an affirmation of her eroding reality. Kieran walked alongside, his very presence a bulwark of reassurance, a silent vow. The old training grounds had been swallowed by the wild. Thorns tore at their clothing, and the air heavy with decomposition pressed against them. But deeper they pressed, locating their quarry. The oak, it towered, its colossal limbs throwing down elongated, warped silhouettes. Here, Talia whispered, a faint vibration humming within her. Her hand ran across the gnarled bark, sensing the ghosts of stories untold. Kieran surveyed the area, his senses heightened. The journal alluded to a hidden inscription. A memento from Theron. Hours they toiled, their fingers exploring every ridge and depression in the ancient wood. Just as discouragement began to settle, Talia discovered it. A minuscule carving, almost imperceptible, concealed beneath a verdant mantle of moss. A spiral etched into the surface. A spiral, she breathed, tracing its form. Its meaning? Kieran's brow furrowed in concentration. The spiral, a venerated emblem of the Northwood Pack. The endless cycle of life, demise, devotion, and treachery. He paused, his expression hardening. And secrets, of course. The spiral served as a key, unlocking a hidden road. The journal spoke of a river, where the stones murmur secrets to the patient listener. They heeded the wind's sighs, the leaves' whispers, until they reached it, a waterway bisecting the forest's core. Days dissolved into a blur of inquiry and pursuit. They sought out the pack's most venerable members, those whose memories stretched into the dim recesses of time. Each discussion was a gamble, a desperate attempt to reconstruct the fractured past. Old Maeve, her visage a tapestry of wrinkles woven by decades under the open sky, recalled a legend of forbidden affection. Theron, he was untamed, feral. But he succumbed to a woman not of our blood. A sorceress, some claimed. Aisling. Her voice, a brittle rasp, seemed fearful of being overheard, even after all these years. He guaranteed her authority, a seat within the pack, but he betrayed her, exploited her magic for his ambitions. Another elder, Silas, remembered an agreement. Theron struck a bargain with something dark, something that demanded appeasement. Aisling refused participation. She tried to thwart him, but he silenced her. His ancient eyes held a brief flash of dread. They say she cursed him, cursed the pack, before she vanished from sight. The pieces began to coalesce, forming a tableau of infidelity and desolation. Aisling, not an antagonist, but a casualty. Theron, obsessed with power, prepared to forfeit everything. And Talia, caught in the wake of their bygone animosity. The journal whispered of Aisling's sanctuary, the haven she fled to in the wake of Theron's perfidy. A cabin, deep within the sylvan depths, where the boundary between worlds grows fragile. Following the disconnected hints, they delved deeper into the woods, where the trees acquired greater stature, the shadows deepened. The air thrummed with a strange, almost tangible energy. They discovered the dwelling nestled within a glade, nearly obscured by rampant vines. It was diminutive, dilapidated, yet radiated an undeniable aura of strength. Kieran placed a hand protectively on Talia's back. "Careful, this place feels fraught." The door groaned open at their touch, revealing a single dimly lit room. Dust motes pirouetted in the air, illuminated by a beam of sunlight piercing a crack in the roof. The atmosphere hung heavy with the scent of herbs and something else, something primordial, almost metallic. A form sat hunched in a rocking chair near the hearth, its back toward them. Long, silver tresses spilled down her shoulders, nearly brushing the floor. The rocker creaked in steady rhythm, the sole sound in the otherwise hushed cabin. "We know about Aisling," Talia announced, her voice barely a whisper. "About Theron's treachery." Slowly, the figure rotated, revealing a face carved by time and shadowed by profound sorrow. Her eyes, though clouded with age, held a flicker of ancient sorcery. "So," the woman rasped, her voice like crumbling stone, "the past returns to settle accounts." Ilara, a scion of Aisling, had been waiting. Secrets of the elder, the air hung thick and expectant as the cabin emerged from the gloom, the reek of sodden earth and pine needles assaulting their senses. Unlike the cluster of ordinary pack dwellings, this one was isolated, swallowed by the encroaching woods. No beacon of welcome shone from its windows, just a somber, almost ethereal luminescence that hinted at the potent force within. Kieran squeezed Talia's hand, a wordless promise, as they trod the neglected path to the door. He felt raw power simmering beneath him, the very air alive with ancient energy. He met Talia's gaze, seeing the familiar blend of apprehension and resolve painted there. This wasn't easy for her, a blind leap of faith, trusting him as her guide. He raised a fist and knocked, the sound amplified by the forest's hush. The door groaned inward, revealing a silhouette swallowed by shadow. An aroma of lavender and aged paper drifted out, a startling contrast to the surrounding wilderness. "We're seeking Ilara," Kieran announced, his voice steady despite the tremor of anticipation prickling his skin. A voice, aged to a rasp yet infused with undeniable authority, replied, "Enter. I anticipated your arrival." Inside, a lone oil lamp cast elongated, swaying figures across the walls. Books, stacked precariously on shelves and tables, lined every surface, their spines creased and faded with time. Herbs dangled from the rafters, infusing the air with a robust, loamy scent. In the center of the room, Ilara sat in a rocking chair. She was more ancient than Kieran had pictured, her face etched with a lifetime of stories, her eyes clouded with cataracts. But those eyes held a sharp intelligence, the knowing that belied her frail appearance. "Alpha Kieran," she acknowledged, her gaze unwavering. "And Talia, the forgotten girl." Her words echoed, laden with the weight of the affliction. Talia winced, a pang of sorrow shooting through her. The sting of that label never faded. Kieran moved forward, his protectiveness surging. "We know you know about the curse, about Aisling and Theron." Ilara chuckled, a dry, crackling sound. "No? I am Aisling's descendant. I carry her blood, her memories, her anguish." She paused, her eyes drifting towards the window, as if peering back through the ages. It began with love, a love forbidden. Aisling, a sorceress of considerable power, and Theron, a member of the Northwood Pack. Theirs was a clandestine affair, a perilous game played in secret. But secrets have a habit of surfacing, wouldn't you agree? Talia felt herself drawn to Ilara, despite the unease churning within. There was a deep weariness in the elder's gaze, a profound sorrow that mirrored her own isolation. "What happened?" she inquired softly. Ilara sighed, the sound like dry leaves rustling. Theron was ambitious, consumed by the lure of power. He saw Aisling's magic as a stepping stone. He betrayed her, revealing her secrets to the Pack elders, who feared her gifts. They turned on her, banished her, branding her a traitor, in her fury and her fury. Despair. Aisling cursed them. All a curse that would echo through generations, erasing happiness, severing connections. Her gaze landed directly on Talia, a strange mixture of pity and understanding in her eyes. "And you, child, are a living manifestation of that curse." Kieran's jaw tightened. He hated hearing Talia defined in such a way, reduced to a consequence of another's actions. He closed the distance between them, his hand a reassuring presence on her back. "We want to end the curse," he stated, his voice resolute. "We want to liberate Talia." Ilara studied them, her gaze lingering on the palpable bond between them. "Love," she murmured, almost to herself. "History seems to be destined to repeat." She levered herself from the rocking chair, her movements slow but sure. The route to breaking the curse is not a simple one. It is fraught with danger, with tests that will challenge your strength, your devotion, your love. "We're ready," Kieran affirmed, his eyes meeting Ilara's. He knew it would be arduous, but he was willing to confront any trial for Talia. Ilara gave a slow nod. "The key lies in the past, in discerning the true circumstances of Aisling's betrayal and the events that followed. The answers you seek are concealed, scattered throughout the land, guarded by those who wish to keep the truth buried." She approached a dusty bookshelf and extracted a thick leather-bound volume. "This book contains fragments of Aisling's journal, her private reflections, her incantations. It may offer insights, direction." She offered the book to Talia. Talia accepted it, her fingers tracing the weathered leather. It felt substantial in her grasp, infused with a force that both terrified and intrigued her. "Thank you," she whispered, gratitude lacing her voice. "But be warned," Ilara cautioned, her voice dropping. There are those who will stop at nothing to prevent your success. The descendants of those who betrayed Aisling still walk among us. They dread the curse's end, for it would mean the downfall of their carefully constructed world. Kieran nodded, his eyes narrowing. We're prepared for them. Preparedness is not enough, Ilara countered, her gaze piercing. You must be willing to sacrifice all. Are you truly prepared to risk everything for a love that defies fate? Kieran looked at Talia, his heart swelling with love and purpose. Without hesitation, he responded, his voice unwavering. Talia met his gaze, her own eyes glistening with unshed tears. She knew the stakes, the perils that awaited, but she also knew that she couldn't confront them alone. With Kieran at her side, she felt a spark of hope, a conviction that perhaps, just perhaps, she could finally escape the curse that had defined her existence. Ilara nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. Then let us begin. But understand this. The path ahead is treacherous, and the price of failure is greater than you can imagine. She turned and moved towards a small wooden chest in the corner of the room. Take this. It may be of use on your journey. She opened the chest and withdrew a small silver amulet. It belonged to Aisling. It will shield you from dark magic. She pressed the amulet into Talia's hand, and Talia clasped it tightly. There is one more thing, Ilara added, her voice tinged with sadness. The curse is bound to the blood moon. If it is not undone before its next rise, Talia will be lost forever even from your memory, Kieran. Her words hung in the air, a cold reminder of the peril. The blood moon. Time was dwindling. Kieran's grip tightened on Talia's hand. He would not fail her. He wouldn't allow her to be erased. We will break the curse, he vowed, his voice ringing with unwavering resolve. We will save her. Ilara regarded them, her eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and foreboding. Then go. Time is of the essence. Follow the clues in Aisling's diary. They will lead you to the truth. She paused, her gaze lingering on Talia. And Talia, never forget who you are. Never let the curse define you. You are stronger than you know. Talia nodded, her heart pounding with a new sense of purpose. She was no longer merely a victim. She was a fighter, a survivor. With Kieran beside her, she would confront whatever challenges stood in their path, and she would fight for her right to exist, to be remembered, to be cherished. They turned and exited the cabin, leaving Ilara alone in the shadows. As they stepped back into the forest, the weight of their mission settled upon them, heavy yet invigorating. The journey had commenced, and the fate of Talia, and perhaps the entire Northwood pack, hung precariously in the balance. A love forbidden. Ilara's gaze settled on the wavering candlelight, its erratic flicker echoing the ancient discord churning within her. The curse it! It wasn't mere spite that birthed it. Heartbreak, dread, a love deemed forbidden, were its genesis. Kieran shifted, his hand seeking Talia's in a reflexive gesture. Her fingers responded, a silent query woven into their contact. The air in the age-worn chamber pressed down, saturated with unspoken histories. Aisling, Ilara began, her voice a resonant murmur, was more than a sorceress. She was anomalous. Her power eclipsed any before or since, a primal link to the earth, to the very heart of magic, both terrified and captivated. Among those enthralled was Theron, the then Alpha of the Northwood pack. Talia's breath caught. Another Theron, another perfidy. The name stung like a poisoned dart lodging in her soul. Their bond was unorthodox, a passionate collision that defied every expectation. Ilara pressed on, her gaze meeting Talia's, a fleeting spark of understanding passing between them. He, an alpha, bound by custom, responsible for his pack's welfare. She, an outsider, wielding incomprehensible, frightening power. They met under a veil of secrecy, drawn together by an irresistible magnetism. For a fleeting span, they found sanctuary in each other's embrace, blind to the tempest gathering around them. Kieran's jaw hardened. He pictured it with stark clarity. Hushed rendezvous, clandestine promises, the heady intoxication of a forbidden love. The pack, however, saw only peril. To them, Aisling was a blight upon their authority, a threat to their stability, corrupting their alpha with witchcraft they couldn't master. Whispers spread manipulation, enchantment, a sorceress ravenous for power, seeking to usurp their birthright. Ilara paused, her eyes sharpening. They perverted love into something grotesque, malignant. So they turned against her? Talia breathed, the question barely audible. The image of Aisling, isolated and betrayed, resonated deep within her. It mirrored her own existence, a life perpetually on the fringes, forever on the cusp of being erased. Ilara confirmed with a nod. They brought immense pressure to bear on Theron. They reminded him of his sacred duties, his loyalty to the pack. They stoked his deepest anxieties, painting Aisling as a demonic figure, a menace to everything he cherished. Kieran squeezed Talia's hand, fierce protectiveness blazing in his eyes. And he succumbed to them. He wavered. Ilara conceded, a shade of melancholy in her tone. His love for her was real, but so was his dedication to his pack. Torn between devotion and duty, he ultimately yielded. The ensuing silence hung heavy, broken only by the fire's crackling symphony. Talia could almost taste Theron's torment, the agonizing dilemma he was forced to confront. But empathy clashed with resentment. He had forsaken love for the sake of his pack, condemning Aisling to an unjust fate. "What did they do to her?" Kieran demanded, his voice tight with suppressed fury. "They orchestrated a carefully plotted treachery." Ilara spat, the words laced with venom. "Lured Aisling into a carefully constructed snare, using Theron as the seeming prize. They leveled accusations of treason, claiming she schemed against the pack. They stripped her of her magical potency, branded her a renegade, an enemy. Then they banished her." Talia's stomach convulsed. The sheer injustice of it was suffocating. But the curse, how did that arise? Aisling, her spirit shattered and consumed by scorching rage, channeled the last vestiges of her power into a curse, not of annihilation, not of physical suffering, but something far more devastating: oblivion. She cursed them to forget her, to erase the memory of their love. She condemned them to live haunted by the realization they had destroyed something precious, yet without the capacity to fully comprehend the magnitude of their forfeiture. Ilara's voice dropped to a hushed reverence. "And that curse it has echoed down through the generations, culminating in you, Talia." Kieran drew Talia closer, his arm a stalwart barrier around her. "That's barbaric. To penalize someone for embracing love, for possessing individuality." Ilara returned his gaze, her face an inscrutable mask. Tradition reigns supreme within the Northwood pack. They fear that which lies beyond their comprehension. They safeguard their power, their customs, their way of life, with ferocious zeal. They are prepared to sacrifice anything to preserve it, including love, truth, even everything. Talia closed her eyes, endeavoring to absorb the staggering weight of Ilara's narrative. The pack's inherent prejudice, their ingrained fears, their unwavering adherence to tradition, it had all culminated in this moment. In her curse, in her solitary existence, in her looming oblivion. So, they condemned an innocent woman simply because she loved someone they deemed unworthy? Talia managed, her voice trembling with a blend of fury and disbelief. In their warped perception, she was anything but innocent. Ilara stated, her voice devoid of emotion. She was a viper in their midst, a threat, one who dared challenge their dominion, to disrupt their carefully fabricated world. Kieran's grip on Talia's hand tightened. And they never regretted it? Never questioned the morality of their actions? Ilara shook her head, her expression resolute. Regret is a luxury they cannot indulge. To confess their error would be to shatter the very foundations upon which they stand. They have buried the truth beneath layers of denial, rewriting history to conform to their narrative. But truth, like water, will always find a path to the surface. Talia opened her eyes, seeking Kieran's gaze. So, we're not just battling a curse, but centuries of ingrained prejudice and unwavering conviction. Kieran nodded, his jaw clenched tight. Then we will fight harder still. We will demonstrate that love is not a weakness, that difference is not a menace, and that the past does not dictate the future. He turned to Talia, his eyes blazing with unwavering determination. We will shatter this curse, Talia. We will expose their deceptions. We will compel them to remember. Talia nestled closer to him, drawing strength from his steadfast resolve. The task that lay ahead seemed formidable, bordering on the impossible. Yet, with Kieran at her side, a flicker of hope ignited within her. Hope that perhaps, against all odds, they could script a new finale, not just for Aisling, but for herself as well. Mirrors of the past, Talia's gaze remained fixed on the serpentine dance of steam above her teacup, a murky reflection of the disquiet in her heart. Ilara's tale lingered, an unsettling ballad of forbidden affection and brutal consequence. Aisling, the shunned sorceress, shattered by love for an alpha, her abilities twisted into spiteful magic. A shiver traced Talia's spine, a painful recognition budding within. Was she condemned to relive that tragedy? Across from her, Kieran's steady, concerned look was an anchor, a reassurance in a world of shifting realities, a pledge of constancy against relentless oblivion. But could it sustain her? It's more than the curse troubling you, Kieran observed quietly, piercing her reverie. He reached out, his fingertips grazing hers. Aisling's fate, it's resonating. Talia recoiled, a sudden tightness gripping her abdomen. She moved to the window, the vast northwood a tapestry of verdant hues and deepening shadows. It felt less like sanctuary and more like a gilded cage. It's layered, she conceded, her voice thready. Layered how? Kieran pressed, his presence a comforting warmth at her back. She spun to face him, the words rushing forth, unguarded and raw. Aisling paid the ultimate price for loving someone considered unsuitable. An alpha, yes, but still different. And consider us, Kieran. You, an alpha, bound by duty, tradition, and me. Marked, tainted, unacceptable. The final word left a bitter aftertaste. Kieran closed the distance between them, his eyes searching, intent. Don't ever speak that way about yourself, Talia. You are anything but. But am I wrong? Is that what they'll believe? Will they embrace me? Or will they see me as a contagion, as they did Aisling, another outsider poisoning their lineage? She hugged herself, shivering despite the cozy atmosphere. Fear, a tangible thing, constricted her chest, stealing her breath. He framed her face with his hands, compelling her to meet his gaze. Talia, listen to me. Their opinions are irrelevant. Tradition is meaningless. My sole concern is you, only you. The intensity in his voice vibrated through her. I won't permit them to dictate our existence. I won't allow them to tear us apart. But what if they're right? She breathed, plagued by doubt. What if the curse? What if its purpose isn't just erasing me, but safeguarding them from something from me? Kieran's grip tightened almost imperceptibly. We'll unravel this, together. We'll unearth the truth behind the curse, and we'll shatter it. And if that demands defiance, then so be it. I choose you, Talia. Always. His vow was a soothing balm, a glimmer of light in the gathering gloom. But the apprehension lingered, a specter lurking just beyond his embrace. Combating the curse was only one element of this struggle, she knew. They also had to confront the ingrained biases of the pack, the dread of the unknown, the crushing weight of generations of custom. They exiled Aisling, she whispered, trembling. They expunged her from their chronicles. What if they attempt the same with me, with us? Kieran drew her close, enfolding her in a protective embrace, the solid strength of him a reassurance. They won't. I won't allow it. I'll expose their falsehoods, their duplicity. I'll unveil the truth about Aisling, about the curse, about you. And if they still refuse acceptance, then they will face the consequences of their choice. She burrowed her face against his chest, inhaling his familiar scent of pine and damp earth, a grounding presence in the swirling vortex of fear. You'd risk everything for me? Without question, he murmured against her hair. You are of infinite worth, Talia. His words were a lifeline, a promise of steadfast support. But she was acutely aware of the treacherous path ahead. Their fight was not merely against a curse, it was against an entire system, a deeply rooted ideology that had molded the Northwood Pack for centuries. Pulling back slightly, she peered up at him, her eyes reflecting a mix of trepidation and hope. Then, we have an immense task before us, she said, a newfound resolve hardening her gaze. We must unearth everything we can about Aisling, about the curse, about those who betrayed her. We must reveal their secrets and rewrite the narrative. Kieran nodded, his eyes burning with fierce conviction. Then let's excavate, he said, his hand clasping hers firmly. We'll find the truth, Talia, and we'll ensure that history does not repeat itself. The fire in his eyes was contagious, kindling a spark of courage within her. She still dreaded the future, the potential for anguish and betrayal, but she knew she wasn't alone. She had Kieran, and together they would meet whatever trials awaited. They would battle for their love, for their future, for the right to exist in a world that had sought to erase her from the beginning. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the forest in long, dramatic strokes of shadow, Talia felt a surge of determination. The echoes of the past still resonated, but she refused to be defined by them. She was Talia, and she would no longer be forgotten. Shadows rising a coppery tang, sharp and unfamiliar, invaded Talia's senses, eclipsing the usual woodland fragrance. This was the Shadowfang clan's signature, a feral reek of predator. Perched beside Kieran on the overlook, the gale clawed at her hair, mirroring the turmoil within. From Kieran came a deep rumble, a primal warning that resonated against her tightly gripping arm. A multitude of dark shapes writhed below on the forest floor, wolves of monstrous size and brutal aspect, unlike any from Northwood. Savagery painted their every movement, malice glinted in their eyes. Braxton, the Shadowfang Alpha, advanced. Even at this remove, his arrogance rolled off him like a palpable wave. He was a mountain of muscle, dark fur bristling with dominance, his voice a gravelly rasp that the wind carried effortlessly. "Kieran, stand aside. This territory is forfeit. The Northwood pack is feeble, fragmented. We've come to claim our due." Kieran's jaw clenched, a muscle twitched in his cheek. He disengaged his hand from Talia's, his fingers brushing hers in a fleeting promise. "This is Northwood. You are trespassing. Turn back now, and I might allow you to slink home." His voice, barely audible, held a lethal edge, a stark contrast to the incandescent fury blazing in his gaze. He was Alpha now, radiating authority from every pore. Braxton's laugh ripped through the air, a jagged, unpleasant sound. "Empty threats from a failing Alpha. Your pack is cursed, Kieran. It's common knowledge, even across borders. The forgotten child, a fitting emblem of your pack's impending extinction." His gaze flicked toward Talia, cruel amusement sparking within it. "Tainted blood, a blight upon your legacy." Talia recoiled, the words striking like a physical blow. She knew, on some level, that they held a kernel of truth. Her mere existence felt like a burden, a perpetual reminder of Northwood's affliction. A tide of shame threatened to engulf her. Kieran saw her flinch, and his anger deepened. He moved to stand before her, a bulwark against Braxton's venom. "Silence, Braxton. You know nothing of our pack, or our strength. Talia is more than your stunted mind can possibly grasp." Turning to his warriors, who were gathering behind them, eyes narrowed and bodies coiled, he bellowed, "Northwood, defend your land, defend your home, show these invaders what awaits those who dare defy us." A deafening roar erupted from the Northwood contingent, a defiant answer to the Shadowfang incursion. Kieran shifted, bones grinding and reforming, transforming into his wolf form, a breathtaking creature of silver and shadow, his eyes burning with staunch resolution. He launched himself off the ridge, his warriors surging after him, a living avalanche of fur and fury crashing into the Shadowfang front. Talia watched the battle commence, her heart hammering against her ribs. It was a savage, swirling vortex of fang and claw, of snarls and ululations. The very air reeked of blood and the sharp tang of fear. Terror threatened to immobilize her, but she fought it back. She couldn't fight like they did, but she had other strengths. She knew this forest intimately, every hidden trail, every advantageous terrain feature. She bolted back towards the pack house, her mind racing. She had to warn them, to organize the defenses. The Shadowfang attack wasn't simply about territory. It was about exploiting their perceived weakness, about preying upon their vulnerability. Braxton sought something more than land. He wanted to shatter the Northwood pack, to claim its remnants as his own. The din of battle faded behind her as she ran. She had to reach the pack house to ensure their safety. Bursting through the entrance, breathless, her voice trembling with urgency, she cried, "They're here! The Shadowfang clan! They're attacking!" Pandemonium broke loose within the pack house. Wolves scrambled to their feet, seizing weapons, their faces etched with dismay. Talia strove to maintain order, guiding them, directing them, her voice gaining strength with each word. "Barricade the entrances! Protect the pups and elders! We will not let them seize our home." Outside, the battle continued to escalate. Kieran's roar cut through the chaos. a signal fire of hope in the gathering darkness. She knew he would fight to safeguard them, to protect her. But she also knew Braxton was a formidable adversary, ruthless and cunning. Then, a chilling thought struck her. Braxton's words echoed in her mind. The forgotten child, a fitting emblem of your pack's impending extinction. He wasn't just aiming to conquer their land, he was seeking to crush their spirit, to demoralize them. He was weaponizing her curse. She sank to her knees, overwhelmed by despair. Was she doomed to be a burden, a liability? Was her existence a curse, not only for herself, but for everyone she held dear? But then, Kieran's words resonated within her. Talia is more than you can possibly grasp. She recalled his unwavering faith in her, his refusal to let her define herself by the curse. And she knew, with a sudden surge of resolve, that she would not allow Braxton to win. She would not permit him to manipulate her to destroy the Northwood Pack. She rose, her eyes blazing with defiance. "We will fight," she declared, her voice ringing with newfound conviction. "We will not let them break us. We will demonstrate that the Northwood Pack is far stronger than they believe." She seized a sword, its weight familiar in her grasp. She might not be a warrior born, but she would fight for her pack, for her home. For Kieran, she would fight for her right to exist, to be valued. She would combat the encroaching shadows, refusing to let them consume her. Outside, the battle intensified. The fate of the Northwood Pack hung precariously, and Talia, the forgotten child, was ready to fight for her future. The acrid smell of burning wood assailed her. They were targeting the outer defenses. Braxton wasn't simply trying to conquer, he was attempting to terrorize. A messenger, bloodied and gasping, stumbled into the pack house. "Alpha Kieran, he's been wounded. Braxton, he collapsed, unconscious." Talia's heart plummeted. "Kieran injured?" The thought sent a glacial wave of apprehension through her veins. She had to reach him. She had to act. Ignoring the pleas of others, she grabbed her cloak and slipped out into the pandemonium. The forest had transformed into a charnel ground, strewn with fallen wolves, the air saturated with the reek of blood and death. She had to find Kieran to ensure his well-being. As she pushed her way through the thicket, she spotted him. He was besieged by Shadowfang warriors, his silver fur painted crimson, his movements faltering. Braxton stood before him, a cruel smirk twisting his lips. "It's over, Kieran," Braxton sneered. "Your pack is shattered, your spirit is broken, and soon you will be broken as well." He raised his hand, signaling his warriors to attack. Talia couldn't permit that to happen. She wouldn't. With a defiant bellow, she hurled herself into the fray, sword aloft, her heart surging with desperate courage. She didn't possess the fighting prowess of a wolf, but she knew how to fight for what she cherished. And she cherished Kieran. She cherished the Northwood Pack, and she would not allow them to perish. Stolen memories, the forest floor was a rushing tapestry beneath Talia's frantic steps as she sought the shelter of the trees. Aches radiated through her, echoes of the brutal skirmish, mirroring the deep weariness that gnawed at her spirit. The Northwood Pack had prevailed, yet the victory felt like a precarious illusion. She yearned to reach Kieran, to ascertain his safety, but a raw, instinctive fear urged her to run. Then a guttural snarl, dripping with menace, reverberated through the woods. Braxton. Talia swerved, hoping to vanish within the thick undergrowth, but a massive hand seized her arm, wrenching her backward. A jolt of pain shot through her shoulder as she fell heavily onto the leaf-strewn earth. Running off? Little shade? Braxton's voice oozed with cruel amusement. His silhouette eclipsed the waning light, an oppressive darkness. He seemed larger, more imposing than before, his eyes ablaze with a possessive hunger that prickled her skin. She recoiled, terror seizing her throat. "Release me, Braxton. This doesn't concern you." A harsh, grating laugh erupted from him. "Oh, but it does, little wisp. Kieran cherishes you. And that elevates your worth." His grip on her arm tightened, his claws digging cruelly. "A lever, perhaps." Talia struggled, but his strength was insurmountable. Her curse, perpetually a burden, now felt like a critical flaw, a weakness destined to shatter them all. She was a vulnerability, a phantom amidst them, and Braxton intended to weaponize her against Kieran. "You think he cares?" she snapped, stalling for time, searching for an escape. "He'll forget me by sunrise. Everyone always does." Braxton's lips peeled back in a predatory grin, revealing teeth far too sharp. "Precisely. Isn't that the enchantment of it all? He can't truly safeguard you. Every day, he must rediscover his love for you. Every day, he struggles to retain you in his memory. What an exquisite, draining game. And I intend to revel in it." He hauled her upright, his grip immovable. The forest swam before her eyes, a blurred swirl of green and brown. A fleeting shadow flickered amidst the trees, a glimpse of a Northwood wolf, but they were too distant, too late. "No," she cried, desperation clawing at her throat. "Kieran will find me." Braxton's laughter echoed, bouncing off the trunks, a cruel symphony mocking her fading hope. "Let him try. He'll find me, and then he'll be faced with a choice. His pack, or the girl he can never truly possess." He dragged her deeper into the woods, toward Shadowfan territory, each step a blow against her dwindling spirit. She was being robbed, not only of her body, but of her bard. Autonomy. Her chance at a life, at belonging. She was being reshaped into a weapon, a mere pawn in Braxton's depraved scheme. The air grew frigid, the trees more menacing. As they crossed the intangible barrier into Shadowfang land, the very earth seemed to thrum with malicious energy, crushing her. She sensed unseen eyes upon her, predators lurking in the murk. Braxton shoved her forward, forcing her through a narrow cleft between two towering boulders. The passage opened onto a clearing, revealing the Shadowfang encampment. It stood in stark contrast to the vibrant warmth of Northwood. The fires burned low, casting elongated, grotesque shadows. The wolves were gaunt and fierce-looking, their eyes gleaming with cold, calculating hunger. They scrutinized her with blatant hostility, their contempt palpable. She was an outsider, a fragile thing, spoils pilfered from their adversaries. She detected no warmth, no empathy, only disdain. Braxton propelled her toward a crude cage fashioned from thick branches, its entrance secured by a heavy chain. "Welcome home, little phantom," he sneered. "Make yourself comfortable. You'll reside here until Kieran embraces reason." He slammed the cage door, the iron clang resonating across the expanse. Talia stumbled, landing on her knees in the dirt. The reek of damp soil and decay filled her senses. This was her prison, her confinement. She lifted her gaze to Braxton, her eyes a mixture of terror and defiance. "He won't parley with you," she stated, her voice shaky yet resolute. "He won't permit you to triumph." Braxton's smile stretched, slow and malevolent, sending a tremor down her spine. "Oh, I believe he will. He loves you, Talia, and love is a vulnerability." He paused, his eyes gleaming with wicked delight. "Besides, With each sunrise he struggles to recall you. But you will retain every moment, won't you? You'll bear the full weight of this anguish, this terror, this emptiness. He turned and strode away, leaving her isolated within the cage, encircled by the cold, assessing eyes of the Shadowfang clan. The burden of her curse settled upon her like a suffocating shroud, extinguishing her hope. She was ensnared, forsaken, and forgotten. And she knew, with a creeping certainty, that Braxton was correct. Love was a weakness. And she was about to become Kieran's ruination. The night deepened, the moon a thin scythe of silver in the indigo expanse. Talia huddled in the cage's corner, her frame trembling with cold and dread. The sounds of the Shadowfang camp swirled around her, the fire's rasping crackle, the wolves' guttural undertones, the lonely lament of a distant hunter. Each sound served as a stark reminder of her captivity, her vulnerability. She squeezed her eyes shut, attempting to shut out the world, seeking some inner fortitude, a glimmer of hope. But all she felt was the crushing weight of her curse, the constant awareness of her own ephemeral existence. She was a wraith, a shadow, destined to dissipate. A tear escaped, hot against her chilled skin. She didn't fear mortality, not really. She dreaded being erased from memory, of fading without a trace, of never truly existing. She feared the affliction she was inflicting upon Kieran, the encumbrance she had become. She envisioned his eyes, illuminated by her presence, the way he held her hand, as if fearing she might dissolve if he released it. He remembered her. He struggled daily to keep her present. And now, she was being manipulated to break him. She couldn't allow that to happen. She wouldn't let Braxton prevail. She had to discover a means of escape, to retaliate, to safeguard the man who had given her a cause to believe in herself, a reason to dream. But how? She was imprisoned, helpless, and isolated. Her curse was her confinement, her Achilles' heel. Or was it? A surge of defiance flared within her, a minute spark in the abyss. Perhaps, just perhaps, her curse could transform into her weapon. Perhaps the very fact that she was forgettable could become her edge. She drew a deep breath, striving to quell her racing pulse. She needed to think, to strategize, to uncover a way to turn Braxton's weapon against him. She was the forgotten child, the glitch in the system. And maybe, just maybe, ghosts could be perilous too. She simply needed to find a way to haunt them all. A strategy began to take shape, delicate tendrils of hope extending from the depths of her despair. It was perilous, dangerous, bordering on suicidal, but it was her singular opportunity, and she was willing to grasp it.